All right, welcome back to the channel, everybody. And this is going to be a different video. This is going to be definitely the first time we've done something like this. So my OP-13 deck showcases and breakdowns are all out for you to watch on YouTube. Check them out at your own disclosure. And since all that is wrapped up and we are gearing up for the OP-13 release in the West over here, we've got a couple more weeks of PRB. But I thought I'd go over like my thoughts and opinions on each of the leaders, some of the deck choices, how it'll kind of shape up. This is just one asshole's opinion, so take it with a grain of salt. But these aren't baseless. I figured we'd go over my favorite leader, the one I'm still probably going to be maining, since I sold my other deck for this one. Going over Ace here, and I also thought this is the first time I'm doing this kind of video, so I thought about lining up the leaders all in one just to kind of go over each one, but I like to kind of show you the deck list that I'm using, or that I did use, or just kind of like a sample one. None of these are all like the end all be all. If you go back into my videos, I even say like what I would change or like some card choices I would do differently. Yap. Going over Ace, Ace is so let's read over his ability again. On your opponent's attack, once per turn, you may trash one card from your hand, give up to one of your opponent's leader or characters minus 2k power for during this battle. 1k counter, or 2k counter, 2k counter. Dawn times 1, once per turn. When you receive damage or your character with 6k base power or more is KO'd, draw one card. Pretty good stuff all around, and then obviously the deck here to help draw and filter. Over in the East, Ace is a big threat, taking up a lot of spaces. Nothing's like crazy over there. There's nothing like, it's more triangle-y, with the occasional kind of like rotation out of one or two leaders, sometimes even three, but you'll always find like Ace at the top tables for sure, as a couple of the other leaders that we'll go over as well. And he 6k base leader ever since the induction of Newgate in OP-02 has always been very good. 3 life is pretty much a stipulation at this point, especially at dual colored. And Ace's ability and Ace as a leader, just he pulls from two very good pools. Like there's a lot of good red cards, especially like this Roger that's going to be a staple in almost every red deck going forward at this point. With the release of the PRB, we've got Marco, which is going to be another blue staple. Blue is it has access to great cards like Pudding, Red Rock, and it's just a good recipe for mixed with a good leader ability, which is crazy because red and blue wasn't like the greatest color combination for a while. I don't think it was a bad one. I don't think it was necessarily the best, but I think Ace is finally the leader that will break that tradition of them trying. They had Vivi, they had Marco from OP-08, which everybody really likes, and he's not a terrible leader either. But I really do think Ace sits supreme there, and I think this is definitely, you can't go wrong if you do choose this leader, but just be aware how to play up against mirrors. Be aware that you're going to be seeing them all over the place. I think Ace is pretty strong, which is good since he's my boy, my favorite character, and I definitely think that they did right by him. We have Sabo here. We'll read over his ability as well. So Sabo, you have 4 more life cards. You give this leader minus 1,000, and then Dawn times 1 if you have a character with a cost of 8 or more. All of your characters and leader gain plus 1,000 power. So Sabo's game plan is a lot more different from Ace, where you just kind of keep playing from the graveyard with this dragon. PRB gave us this nice blocker Sabo, but again, you're running the Roger staple like I mentioned previously, running the other rush option and the other dragon. Very good. And then this new secret rare that we do get is absolutely crazy. Really works well with our dragon and really helps out our leader ability tenfold. I think Sabo is definitely a deck you also want to watch out for. TDLR, all the OP-13 leaders are solid or decent in their own right, just some are stronger than others. And if you guys have seen the videos, or if you've seen anybody else's videos or any sort of tournament results, you can make that decision for yourself. But I do think Sabo is definitely, I'm not going to say he's a rogue pick. He's probably like tier 2, tier 1, probably more in the probably closer to the tier 1 cusp, but he's but he's got a very linear, not the most linear, we'll get to that. He's got a very linear game plan. He does the same kind of like goal over and over. Essentially, he just does it very well. He boasts a very powerful defense, buffing all of his characters and himself by 1,000, as well as establishing really big blockers, really big board presence, really strong rushers. He's super good. A lot of deck filtering. So I think Sabo's a really good kind of mid-rangey deck. Really, as we get closer and closer into the late game, he can definitely stand tall. So I do think Sabo is a pretty solid leader all around. Really, really can't go wrong if you do end up picking him. Moving right along, we've got one of the weaker leaders of the set. We've got Jewelry Bonnie. Your turn, once per turn, this effect can be activated when you play a character with a trigger. Give up to 2 Rested Dawn cards to your leader or one of your characters. Now, if you quickly glance over this list, every single card here, except for 2, have trigger. So, you know, and then giving Rested Dawn, as well as the 2 Rested Dawn, making our leader attack for 7k each time, or another character, you know, attacking for 2 or more extra Dawn, it reads really well on paper, and it's not bad. Her leader ability is not bad. The cards that she plays with are not bad. They are just not very strong compared. They just aren't inherently super strong. You could argue that the best thing would be maybe this Boa, as well as like the Secret Rare Kuma, which is again going to be a super good staple. We even got a decent late game in the Bonnie, but that's all we really have is just kind of like flooding and stalling, kind of classic yellow. We are trigger happy, we are trigger dependent, and our strategy is very low ceiling at the end of the day. So while we can spam bodies, or we can put out bodies and add those Dawn to our leader and our characters and really make use of everything, we just cap out really early. We don't have very much to do, you know, and it's just, I guess, for lack of a better term, a slower deck when everything else is a little bit more aggressive. Bonnie is just a little low to the ground, but she's not impossible. She's not bad, like I said, by any means. Just one of the weaker leaders out of this set. If you play with her, you must like the character. And her deck is a lot of fun to play with. Just, I would think if you're going to go to a big major tournament, like a regionals or Bandai Card Fest or anything like that, I don't think Bonnie should cross your mind at all, unless you're like a master and you've got the perfect deck list and your intelligence level is above 1,000,000 and you're just galaxy brain like that. But if you're not, I just wouldn't recommend playing her. Moving along, we've got probably one of the other unique leaders here. We've got Emu, reading, you know, under the rules of the game, can include events with a cost of 2 or more in the deck, and at the start of the game, you may play up to 1 Mary Joie stage from your deck. And then activate main, once per turn, you may trash 1 Celestial Dragon type character from your field, or 1 card from your hand and draw a card. Emu, like I said, is the second, well, it's just another leader that's, you know, monocolored, not 5 life, just being 4, kind of like Enel. Emu is another deck that you will see at the top tables for a couple of reasons. One, it's really cheap. It's a super cheap deck to play. And 2, its game plan is easy to execute over and over again. It's the most linear deck you could ever pick up, and it does its game plan very strong. If by the time we get to the late game, you know, just keep running, dropping the 5 elders here, keep cycling through these guys from the grave. They pull from the trash, so it's not too bad. You know, drop a Stussy or 2 whenever you need it. You've got very strong defense and never existed. Also helps out your mirror match. The Empty Throne is absolutely cracked, making you a 6k on your own turn, as well as more removal and more defense. Emu is definitely a little unconventional to play if you're not used to the kind of like black style where you're trashing cards and then pulling things from the graveyard, but that's kind of what black does. And like I said, it's a very simple deck to pilot. It doesn't take a genius to, you know, do. You can argue there are like some niche situations, but that will happen for every matchup and every leader, where you will have to play a little unconventional and have to use a little bit of this thinking box. However much brain power you want to use will be dependent on what kind of situation you're in and what kind of deck you want to play. Despite all that, because of its cheap price tag that it's got and that it performs its job very well, I do think that you'll see Emu, like I said, over in the East. Emu is making a big appearance in that format, always going to be like top 5, top 10, and I would expect it to do the same thing in the West. Of course, the Eastern format is different from the West, so we will have to see how things translate. There are some people saying this is the end-all be-all leader, that this leader is crazy and it's going to bring the death of the game, and to that I say hooey. I say hogwash. It is not going to do any of that. And I think if you look at the results over in the East, while I did say that our formats are not the same, and this does ring true, I do not think that Emu will kill the game. I didn't even know people were saying that until doing a little bit more deep dive here. Getting away from that tangent, as well as this list is going to look pretty standard to what you're going to see for every Emu list. There are a couple of changes and ratio changes you can do, like the Stussies, like the St. Charlos, but most of these cards are 4 4-0s, 3-0s, and they're set in their ways. Like I said, really, really easy deck. Simple. It's got its game plan laid out for you. Follow the blueprints, and you'll find gold at the end of your rainbow. Moving on, we've got Monkey D. Luffy, and he reads Dawn ×1 on your opponent's deck. If you have 5 or less active Dawn cards on your field, you may rest any number of your active Dawn cards up to one of your leader or Straw Hat Crew type characters. Gain plus 2k power for each Dawn that was rested by this effect. So Luffy's probably arguably the most unique leader out of this set, not necessarily for the leader ability itself, although that it's a really, really strong, boasts of very big defensive power, but in the way that you can build this leader. I've seen so many lists when trying to piece together my own. I came across a lot of issues, a lot of changes. I had to rack my brain to figure out how the ratios I wanted to do, because on paper, this leader reads absolutely insane. You will never get through his defenses is what he says. But the problem is that that's all he is about. That's all this leader really, really is. And because its leader ability is restricted to mainly Straw Hat Crew, you have to be careful with some of your card choices, because you can't always defend things like this Garp, like this Law, like this Bonnie. Now, of course, you can minimize that with all the Straw Hat Crew type. We're 13 sets in at this point. There are Straw Hat Crews in every single color, but some are better than others, and there are just some other strategies that you can run. And another issue is that this is One Piece, that this leader's top end going into it is just absolutely abhorrent. It's almost non-existent, or it's just not worth it. We only run the one Zoro. We kind of aim to like stick these bodies out, like these little mid-game bodies, like these 5s, these 7s, these 6s. You could adjust the ratios for like more 9 drops, more 10 drops, more 8 drops. Or you can put Hody Jones in there. You could put the 10 drop Shanks, although that card is too slow. I've tried it. I really have tried it. You can argue for another Zoro. You can argue for a lot for this deck and different ways to build it. But at the end of the day, he is super malleable, and when he works very well, but his gimmick could be easily surpassed. His gimmick could be easily overcome. And he just requires, I think, more. He just needs a little bit more to work with. And I'm sure he'll get it, because this is not a bad leader by any means. It's just something nobody's really on the lookout for. So, hey, if you can crack this leader and give everybody a standard 50 deck list, you're a genius. Because to my knowledge, there are people still labbing this leader to this day. They are basing their entire content around this leader because it is that malleable. How many of this should I run? How many of that should I run? Should I run this at all? Should I just play a different leader? All valid questions. But I don't think Luffy's bad. I just think if you're looking to pick him up, just be wary that he is a little bit difficult to kind of get the ball rolling with. And unless you're fully dedicated to it, I would recommend staying away from Luffy, as sad as that is. Oh man, I forgot to put my camera back. Whoops. Editor, do your job. And moving on to the last leader of OP-13, the one everybody was so highly anticipated for, the Pirate King himself, Gold D. Roger. Now, Roger says if you have any Dawn cards on your field, give one Dawn card that would be added during your Dawn phase to your leader. If you have 9 or less Dawn cards on your field, give this leader minus 2,000 power. A lot to unpack here. 7k base, 5 life, dual colored, red and purple. We already know that that's definitely a combo that people like. Absolutely insane stat line. Roger is definitely the first of his kind. I'm not sure if we'll ever see another 7k power leader unless they make several different Roger leaders or high anticipated characters. Granted, we've seen almost every powerful character in the verse. Almost at this point. We'll probably get a Rocks leader, and he might be pretty close to 7k. But we'll have to see, because we cannot tarnish the good Pirate King's name. But Roger is another deck that you will see in the top tables, arguably later than when he first released, simply because of this promo. This deck doesn't live and die on the promo, but it really, really does need it. It really, really does rely on it a lot. You do have a lot of other heavy hitters like this staple that we keep referencing back. Shanks is a great, great banger to drop in any form. This Newgate always comes in and out of popularity, but really does work very well here. And then you've got, just this Rayleigh daily, which is really good. You've got standard good purple cards like Bond 2. You've got standard good purple cards like this Mr. 2 and this Usohachi, and another red staple here being Uta. At this point, go pick him up. She skyrocketed in price. But Roger is also one of those leaders that he has a skeleton. This is what you could consider a Roger skeleton, but you can build it however you want. He's got a lot of card choices and deck builds that he can work with. For example, damn near no one's running this Rayleigh, but I did it because I wanted to be cheeky and I saw it somewhere. But I wouldn't do it moving forward. Like, I would absolutely replace this. I would absolutely change this deck again if I were to ever pick it back up. And I think that, you know, for being the first 7K power leader, with his leader ability reading that he doesn't really turn himself on until the very ass end of the game, I think it's fitting. I think it's fine because you do get to swing for 6K each time you are at 5 life. The problem is that Roger does not necessarily do anything until you are about the 7 or 8 done. You can argue maybe 6 because of the scopper, but you really have to see his curve because he wants to drop bangers on curve, and he wants to ramp to being his 7K leader as fast as humanly possible. And of course, we have cards that do it. Most, if not all of these cards give us Arrested Dawn, and they ramp for us. So if you see double, triple ramp in your first turn, good God, you are going to be at 10 by like turn 3. It's absolutely insanity. However, you know, that's all your deck does, is it just ramps and ramps until you get to your 9s, your 10s, your 10s, your 8s, your 8s. It is just ramp dot deck. And there's nothing wrong with that, but because of that, we have like a weaker defense. This is our only blocker besides this Uta. Again, these are all changes that could be made. These are only counter events. I honestly don't even think Divine Departure is that great. I do like the 0 drop, 3K counter, of course, but I'd argue the red one might be a little better, Shanks' Divine Departure, but I'm also speaking purely from a removal perspective, because minus 8K power is nothing to scoff at, and obviously trashing a card to give 3K is really good, but But you do need cards like this because we run bricks like no other. Like, these 3 are bricks, these 2 are bricks. This Event of You of No Other Dawn is a brick. It can get pretty dicey. Don't have a whole lot of 2Ks, just being this Usohachi, this Uta, and this Buggy, really. That's it. The rest of these are 1s. The other blocker, that's it. Roger's definitely a deck that you do want to be on the lookout for, though. If not immediately, at least later down the line, like I said with the promo. And, you know, for his first debut, the Pirate King, I think, is going to be pretty strong. You will see him. He will rotate in and out of popularity, but he will be a top 5, top 10 deck that you need to go for. And I think he's a perfect first addition to the card game. You know, a little rocky start, but when he does meet his late game, you basically shouldn't be able to match his power. And he will get to his late game way before you get to yours, but you could also rush him down and be pretty aggressive. There's pros and cons to it. So those are my thoughts going in on OP-13, and I've played several games with each of these leaders, crafting deck lists, going off different deck lists, making little changes here and there, trying out little tech cards, and this is kind of what I've come across. Obviously, I've already shown you guys this, but these are the thoughts and opinions of only one player out of the vast majority that this game has, and this vast majority that the game will pick up going forward. OP-13 is definitely a huge power creep set. All the anniversary sets have been OP-05, OP-09, now OP-13, 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 and I think that we'll keep that tradition for the 4th anniversary set when it comes out too. So we'll have to stay tuned and see. I think the majority of these leaders, like I said, besides really Luffy and Bonnie, right? Yeah, besides this one and this one, I think are very, very viable. And those are viable as well. It's just, I wouldn't expect to get too far with them. But really, if you really want to be competitive, he's your best bet. This loser's probably another good bet, and depending on when we get that promo and anything else, he's a solid bet as well. And Sabo. But yeah, that's gonna wrap up my thoughts for, you know, the OP-13 meta in the East. It is now coming to a close, and we will be shortly looking at it over here in the West. It is the 25th, the date I'm recording this. I believe it comes out on November 13th. So we'll definitely have to see how the West takes OP-13 and what we decide to do with it, because we're degenerates. From what I know from TCGs is that the Western audience is they're degenerates. It's okay. At least we have a label, and we'll have to see if these statistics that we were seeing from the East will translate over here. But that's all I've got for you guys today. If you like the video, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on anything I'm giving to you. Make sure you drop a like on it so I know I can continue to do these, or if I know to stop these things, or and leave a comment telling me that you absolutely loved the video or you absolutely hated it, or just leave a comment asking me how my day was, and I will respond to you, it was good, and then I will ask you about your day, and then we'll have a civil conversation because we are two guys or gals. I'm a guy, you could be a guy or a gal that enjoy this card game. And then follow all of my socials in the description: Twitch, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. And until the next time, everybody, take care, stay blessed.